This video's main purpose is to document the experience that I've had with the topics associated with the title of the video. Nofap is a crazy journey, and it's unbelievable what happens in our subconscious mind, in our mind that isn't at the forward thought and thinking. There's something to this, fellas. I've watched a lot of the wet dream videos that are out there on YouTube right now, and I never really experienced it. It's really interesting. So how I winded up getting into it was I was watching it from the time I was like 12 to 19, right? And when I stopped, I went on like 120 days, like cold turkey, like I was good. I just like started off strong and just like ran with it. I think there was like a couple relapses in the beginning, but I really ran with it in the beginning, and I never really experienced the wet dream. But there's another problem that is linked to of course, the usage of pornography and fapping and all that stuff. There's another problem. You see, there's an issue with the actual porn itself, that of what it does to your brain over time and as you use it, is that it creates a more hypersexual train of thought. What I mean by that is, even if you're not watching anything or if you're not fapping, the problem is that you're not actually controlling the urges and the energy that is coming your way. You might just be blocking it by simply keeping yourself busy throughout the day. Now, there's something to this. I think this is what trips people up the most. I think this is what makes someone that goes like 120 days just relapse, and someone that isn't even counting. And I think we should all aspire to get to that point where we're not even like keeping track of our days. We're just living a good life and we're just happy with who we are. Of course, we're going to have our ups and downs, but I'm talking overall. You say to yourself, I can't believe I've finally beaten this addiction, this problem, this habit, whatever you want to call it. So what happens is, when you're by yourself, you tend to think a lot about sex itself. So I think what can happen to people, and I'm currently experiencing this right now, is you go through Nofap. You start to go through like actually having a relationship, actually like having sex, and you get that for maybe like you have your first like long-term partner. That happened to me. And then what happens is you start to become craving to the sex, not just the fapping. So I think then what happens is fapping becomes kind of like a means to an end rather than something that you really want to do. It's something that will kind of beat the craving. It's not as good as the regular thing. It's not as good as the real thing that you're used to, but it takes care of the craving. And that can be a big problem. That can lead into a big spiral, because you're not actually craving the fapping anymore, but you're actually craving sex. And that can run into problems, because if you're constantly craving it, then you're going to come off as like thirsty to other girls when you're trying to talk to them. You'll be in your own head. It will be a real struggle, because you haven't gotten that internal conflict of the hypersexuality resolved. Now, I think what then happens is, if you do experience like a wet dream, there's different types of wet dreams that people have talked about. I've experienced quite a particular type that is quite strong in a sense. It's really linked to the way that the brain thinks and the way that your dream state is. And there's a connection between that as well as sleep. So there's people that will wake up and they just kind of have like this like pre-cum that's like sitting in their pants. Some people will just be like rock hard. And then I think there's also experiences where you actually will full on ejaculate, where you didn't even touch anything, but there's just so much sexual hypersensitivity, like hypersexuality that's going on in your brain, especially during dream, is that it legitimately feels like the real thing in your dream. And it's very hard to decipher the difference between a dream and reality unless you have that sensation of waking up. So then what happens is you wake up and then you have the wet dream, and it's not that you relapsed. You didn't relapse because it wasn't your decision to actually go ahead and fap, right? And you most likely aren't going to like ejaculate as much during a wet dream than it is during like, obviously, like actual sex. And then what I believe then starts to happen is you get to the point where what do I really want to hit with this? Because I want to make sure that I really hit this correctly. What then happens is we have a sense of relaxation once that happens, right? Because we wake up and boom, it's got taken care of for us. So a little bit of that relaxation, but it doesn't solve the actual problem in why is it that there's all this like hypersexuality that's going on in your mind and in your brain and in your thinking pattern. That's got to be connected somewhere in your sleep, especially if you think of it as like really rough. What I believe helps with this is the way that your evening routine is set up. So if you're someone who like falls asleep with the TV on, or you're watching videos, or you have a lot of like repressed energy already, maybe you need to like meditate or exercise to get that out. But if you go to bed with that energy, then I think what happens is you get lost in that dream state. So there's this connection also, that of which sleep paralysis is. So this is kind of just a theory that I'm throwing out there, and that I don't think that it's 100% definite, because I don't think that any of these things in the Nofap community are 100% clear or factual, because it's not really something that's actually like, well, there is scientific studies on Nofap, but to the degree and to the depth that we're trying to go, as far as like regular people out there on YouTube, I think it's it's more so interesting for that niche where we can kind of almost self-discover through our own experiences, and we document those experiences. So I'm very curious as to what has happened to you guys. What experiences are you guys having with Nofap? I would definitely appreciate a comment down below to kind of let me know how those things are going for you. We're still going strong. I'm feeling good about it. We are just trying to focus on the grind, of course. We're trying to focus on getting that money, try to just focus on building better habits. So far, so good. My rib is recovering. Anyone that doesn't know, I had a rib pop during jiu-jitsu practice. That's starting to get better, so I'm just happy about that. Anyway, guys, I got to get on to the rest of my day. I hope you fellas keep it real, get that bag, and I'll talk to you guys next time.